All right, so to start a new design, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click on either new design file over here, or I can come to drafts and click the plus button and click on new design file here. And I got this pop-up here about FigJam. We're not looking at FigJam, so I'm just going to dismiss that. And here we have our main drawing board over here with our layers, page, design, prototype, inspect. This is our main drawing board. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull out a frame. This sort of pound sign signal looking thing is the frame. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to pull out a frame. Now a frame is distinct in that you can think of it as the window of the design you're trying to put together. This is almost like the window of the browser or the window of the device. And comes in with a white background and all of your measurements for that are right here. This is in this position of 278x minus 242y, and it is 185 wide by 328 high. And you can come along here and you actually have a few presets for commonly used devices. So I could set this to the iPhone 11 Pro, and this is the dimensions of that. So if you want to design for an iPhone 11 Pro, you would come over here to frame, and just right here where it says frame, here's where you have all of the standard devices that you may want to design for. That you can also change the orientation for landscape and portrait, and play with this. This is the rotation if you choose, as well as a border radius. If I would have set that to say 25, you would see we now have a border radius around here. So that is initially frames. If I want to add a design element here, I'm going to come over here to this. This is the rectangle tool, and you'll see you have a number of other sort of vector-based tools here. You've got your line, your arrow, your ellipse, and so all of your basic shapes. And I'm going to grab a rectangle tool, as many of our components and elements will be rectangle-based. That's for the web. And if I were to come over here and just pull out a rectangle, rectangles don't necessarily have to be in a frame. You've got your color information over here, again with your height and width and dimensions, and you can just pick it up and move it using the move tool. And now watch this. This is the interesting thing about frames, that if you keep your eye on the layers panel, I drew this out just on the drawing board, but were I to actually drop it into the frame, see how the frame lights up blue, and as I let go, keep your eye on the layers panel. The rectangle is now inside the frame, which is actually very interesting, where you can just drag and drop and it will actually relayer the orders. That is an interesting distinction for design software, where if you want to group certain things together, I'm holding down Alt and click, and I'm just going to drag out a few copies. So if you had a few elements and you want to grab all of those and make sure that they were all grouped together, you don't have to worry about constantly rearranging your frames and your rectangles in your elements. You can actually just select all of them, grab them, and now the layers automatically rearrange themselves. So keep your eye out for that feature. It makes this very quick and handy to work with. Now, if I wanted to change, say, the color or the size of that, I got the color right here over here under fill, and it brings up a color picker, and I can change this to red or to green or blue or whatever. So here you have all of your color controls. And if I want to change the size, if you highlight on any element, you get the control bars, and you can scale this up and down and left and right and move it around. Now, just to explore the tools a little more, if we come back to a rectangle, underneath that we have a line, and we can drag out a line. And the color of the line right now, this is only 1 pixel in width. And if we were to select that, we get all the information of that element right here. Here is the color, and I could say change this to, say, a bright cyan. And this right here, this sort of thin, medium, and thicker line, this is actually the stroke width. So if I came here, you'll notice that the cursor becomes a left-right arrow. And with that, if you click, you can actually slide and drag. Or if you wanted to, you can actually control this just by clicking into the number and saying, I want this to be a width of 50 even. So here's your line tool. And beneath that, we have our arrow tool. This can come in handy, say, for presentations where you just click and drag out an arrow, much the same like the line tool, but you'll notice it has an arrow there. And with that, you can, again, change the thickness, and the arrowhead changes proportionally. What remains consistent is the length, but you can make the width much greater for visibility. You also have a few other controls here for the direction of the arrow. If you want to, like, say, have a double arrow, or reverse the tail end, or triangle. You can even change the direction with this button. And a few other controls here, but that's essentially your arrow. Here we have our ellipse. This is for all of our circles, so I can pull out an ellipse. If I hold down Shift, it will maintain the aspect ratio of a circle. So here are your circles as well. And much, say, the rectangle, you have your color over here. I'm going to add a stroke right here just by clicking on this plus button here. You'll see now we have a 1 pixel width black stroke here. And I'll change that to, say, I don't know, green, and make it a little wider. You'll notice that it is coming in from the inside, and the green is going towards the inside of the shape. Right here, we have control over that. I can make that go towards the outside. And now as I change the stroke width, it will grow rather than closing in towards the center. And we can also put this towards center, so growing this will affect the inside and the outside. We have our polygon for all of our triangles. And over here, over in the design panel, if you see, again, with our position, our width, we also now here have, this is the count. This is how many points are on your polygon. And right now it is a triangle with 3, which is the lowest number you can have for a polygon. But if I were to change that to, say, 5, now we have a pentagon. If I were to, say, change it to a dozen, now we'll have a 12-sided circle. So the count over here is how you can control the number of sides for your polygon. Just below that, we have the star. In case you want a different shape for your polygon, we have a star shape. And much like the polygon here, you've got your fill. You can add a stroke. This right here is, again, the count, and this is the number of sides you will have. So I can have a 12-sided star if I want. If I want to have, like, say, a sunburst sort of effect. And this is the degree of the radii of your star. So you can change the degree there. So between those two, you can make a number of very interesting sort of shapes to enhance your designs and such. If you click on Place an Image, it'll open up a file browser, and you can load an image from your computer. However, just speaking about images for a second, you can also, say I were to go to Google and just search for an image. I'll search for birds. And I were to go to Google Images here. And any number of these pictures here, to add images in Figma is actually very simple. If I were to, say, right click on this and say copy the image, I could just click back into Figma, hit Control V, and paste the image directly in Figma. And now you'll see that we have an image over here in our layers panel, along with our frame and our rectangle and all of our shapes and such. If you click directly on the image here, you'll notice that over here in our design panel, we have a fill image. And if I click on that image, you'll actually see that we have a number of basic photo editing tools here for some quick adjustments for, say, exposure. We can make it brighter, we can make it darker. You have contrast, so make higher contrast, lower contrast, saturation, black and white, very quick, simple black and white, temperature, warmer, cooler, tint, change the color, highlights, make the highlights brighter, make the highlights softer. Same with the shadows, make the shadows brighter or darker. So you do have a couple of basic photo editing tools here. And if you actually click on here, you'll notice you have a number of options for how to present the actual image. So I'm actually going to switch from fill to crop. And when you click on crop, over here on the image, you'll start to see these blue handlebars around the image. And if you click on any of those, you can actually begin to crop down on the image and just hit enter. And it's a quick way to crop and to adjust. Continuing down the line of our tools here, next up is the pen tool. If you're to click that, you have the pen tool and the pencil tool. Very briefly, the pencil tool, you can draw out any shape, and that becomes a vector that you can then play with as a vector line, and you have a number of controls over here. But more interestingly than that, the pen tool, if you were to come, say, right next to our polygon star shape here, and just start to click out a number of points of any type. And when you get to the last point, you'll notice that small dark circle appear under the pen tool, and that's how you know you're about to close the shape. So you click that, and now you have created your own custom vector shape. To fill that, I'm going to come to the right-hand panel here where we have fill. I'm just going to click this plus button, and that's going to fill it with a color. And I'm going to change this to any color here. Maybe say a sort of a darker, sort of orangey brown. Okay. As I click off the shape, if I were to, I can move this around and I can scale it and stretch it. If I wanted to actually change the shape, if I were to go to the move tool here and actually click on the shape, all of those points will reappear, and you can click on any individual point and move them around until they are exactly as you like. And these are editable infinitely. This is essentially non-destructive editing, and you can do this forever. And what's interesting here is now that we're into playing with vector shapes a lot, this is very useful for creating icons or creating masks or creating shapes or such. What you can do is when you have multiple shapes, let's say I take this vector and I place it over here with our original star. You'll see over here in our layers panel, we have the star right here, and we have the vector right here. And if I were to select both of those, up here in the middle, in particularly this section right here, these are our Boolean operators, and we can select either union, subtract, intersect, or exclude, and a union will blend these two shapes together into a single shape. Subtract will subtract one from the other. Intersection will give you the shape of the two pieces where they overlap, and exclude will give you these shapes with a negative space where the two pieces interlace. So here's union, and you'll see now they all share the same color, and over here we have a new item here. This is a union group, and inside there we have our original vector shape and we have our original star shape, and we can actually continue to move those around, and they retain the quality of a unified shape. Grab the star, I can continue to rotate it, and they are still independently editable. If I select these again and go back to that, how about instead of this time of a union, I want a subtraction, and you get this chunk taken out of the bottom piece. If I were to say want to reorder that, if I move the star above the vector, now I have the star shape making a negative cut into the custom vector shape. So the piece on top will cut into the piece below. I want to redo that, like that. So this is a subtraction intersection. Let me reselect both of those again, and we will have an intersection selection. That gives us this small little piece here. And again, if I were to move any of those, we can change that shape by changing where those two pieces actually intersect. And again, I can grab the move tool and click into that shape. and actually even continue to move the vectors and actually control the shape. And this is very useful for creating any number of custom shapes that aren't necessarily rectangles, lines, arrows, and squares. From here, let me select both of those again. And we are at an intersection, and this is an exclusion. So here, instead of having just this piece, we have this piece as a void. And you can even see, if we move that up, say, above the bird, we can see that's now an empty space. And again, we can continue to edit one piece or another and move them around and such. Now, if I were to actually continue to edit this, I'll make this just a single union shape here. And it's starting to look almost like a bent over sunflower or something. So I'm going to just continue along with that. And I'll even make this look more like a leaning palmetto tree or yeah, just a sunflower tree shape is starting to appear here. So I'm just going to continue to make that look a little bit more like that. And now you actually have a nice custom shape that you can start to make logos and icons and such. And this is just the beginning of what you can do in terms of drawing in Figma. Next on the line is the text tool. If I were to click on the text tool, right out of the gate, if I just click on the drawing board here, I'll get a cursor and I'll be able to start typing and typing and typing, and it goes in a straight line. We have all of our controls over here for font and font size and alignment, but before I get into that, if I click in here and select all, I'm just going to delete this for the moment. In fact, I can even delete, and you'll see the text layer deletes itself. If I were to grab the text layer and instead of just clicking and typing, if I were actually to click and drag out a box and then start typing, I'm going to call this, say, sunflower renovations Inc. And this is going to be the beginning of our logo. So I don't like how I want this to actually collapse down. So I'm going to move that box down. And the benefit of having this in a text box is that it allows you to actually define the width of the box rather than just a straight line. You can start to align text a little bit more. I'm going to click in here again, and just again over here on the text, I am left aligned and I want to be center aligned. I could also be right aligned or center aligned. We also have some items for the font size. I'll make this a little bit smaller. Nah, how about a little bit larger? And I will change the font family from Roboto to, what's a good one here? Just Sunflower Ink in Ropa Sans. If you have local fonts enabled, you'll be able to access the fonts that are installed in your computer. Before you have local fonts enabled, you will have a series of Google fonts and web-safe fonts ready for you. So continuing with this little brief logo design, I'm going to change the, let's say, the letter spacing over here. I have options for the letter spacing. And so as I click off, you can see you can start to put together the beginnings of, say, a branding exercise where you would have a logo and your text, and you can start to put together a company brand just very quickly and easily. Now, let's say we want to take this beginning of a logo or something, and we want to refine it further. First of all, I'm going to correct my typo here and make this the Sunflower Renovation Inc. And to go into just a little bit more of a refinement on the pen tool, if we were to, this shape here looks a little jagged for my tastes. So if we were to actually select that initial shape And to refine it further, if we were to click into that shape and we see all of the points, we can actually convert these points from sharp angles to curves using this conversion tool here. If you pull that out, you'll pull out a vector handlebar, which will begin to create a curve for you and start to smooth out that line. If you wanted to grab just one handle or the other, hold down Alt and you can control the curve on one side of the line or the other. So continuing to just make all of these curves, just by clicking on them, I can get rid of all that jagged edge. And if I zoom out, just that small adjustment, I'll click done, is already making that look a lot better. So that's a little bit more about the pen tool and curves. To convert a curve back into an angle, once again, while I have the bend tool enabled here in the curves, I'll select an individual vector and click, and it will go back to a sharp angle. And then just click again, and you can bring back the curves and such. Next on our tool list here is the hand tool, where if you'll notice, I've been panning left and right while I've been looking at our design to navigate in Figma. Right now I have a 3-button mouse and the middle scroll wheel. If you actually have a clickable scroll wheel, that will become the hand, and you can click and pan left and right. You can also, on a keyboard, hold down the space bar, and that will also give you your hand, and clicking with the mouse button, you can scroll left and right. Outside of that, you can actually even click the hand tool, and that will give you just the hand tool, and you can click left and right, and to use another tool, you just click on that. To zoom in and out is actually the plus button on your keyboard or the minus button to zoom in and out. So between the hand tool, either using the middle mouse, your space bar, or the hand tool here, and plus and minus, you can zoom and scroll and pan. Lastly here, we have the comment button. And if I click on comment, we get this little map pin icon. And you click anywhere on the design, and the map pin will open up this dialog box, and anyone that you are collaborating with, an art director, a developer, a client, can come in here and offer comments on your design while you're working, and say, looks great, needs more red birds. You can click post, and you'll see the post here. Mike T has just now said this looks great and needs more red birds, and they'll get an email alert that a comment has been made. You can go in there when you receive a comment and actually reply directly in the comment. Thanks. We'll add more red birds. And this is how you can bring up design issues, and when you're all done, you can actually resolve a comment. Your design will then see the pin in your design, and to have the pin no longer visible, just click on any tool. To actually see the comments, you actually have to click on the comment box here. And that's a great way for teams to communicate with each other within the design. And the last thing to call out here is up in the title bar here where it says Untitled. If you just double click on that, you can actually title this, and I'm going to title this My First Figma Board. And that's the beginnings of how to start to work with Figma.